My family's been farming in the Jamboree region now for over 180 years. My husband and I set up Clover Hill Dairies 35 years ago, and in 2000 my son decided that he'd like to come back to the farm, so we realised it was imperative that we grow our business quite significantly. Actually buying land to grow the business just wasn't an option, so we decided to make the most of what we actually had. So the perfect option was to grow the best quality grass that we possibly could. So we focused on drought resistant and water efficient and fertiliser efficient pasture, and we grew the most amount of pasture we possibly could. And then it was really important that we have a really good foundation of genetics for our cows, so we decided to source or breed the highest genetic merit cows we possibly could, and then the key was to look after those cows. So that allowed us to grow our business by grazing more cows. So what we did was we followed the less is more principle, and what we mean by that is that our aim is to produce more milk using fewer resources and generating less waste. So we were able to grow our business from 2000 milking 80 cows to milking 500 cows. And then we decided we'd like to grow the business even more. So we moved to milking 3 times a day. We actually had the cows on the road travelling backwards and forwards 50% more. So we realised that that could potentially impact on our sensitive rainforest environment. So that's when we realised that we needed to bring some more experts in, and those experts obviously were people whose area of expertise was natural resource management. So that's where our partnership with, at the time, that was our Catchment Management Authority and Landcare started. So we learned how important it is that we monitor our nutrients. So we started nutrient monitoring and then nutrient mapping and only putting out fertiliser where we needed to put out fertiliser. We realised, just like farms across Australia, we're experiencing more extreme weather events. It's not unusual in our region to get 10 inches of rain in 10 hours. So if you've got cows manuring obviously on these laneways getting backwards and forwards to the dairy, that was obviously a threat to the wider catchment as well. So that we put in, we did a number of things. We put in these cow superhighways so we could get the cows backwards and forwards from the dairy as efficiently as possible. What that meant was the nutrients stayed in the paddock and not on the laneways, where they could be washed off in major rainfall events. The health of the catchment is particularly important to us, so what we did was we put in native vegetation buffer zones between the paddocks and the waterways. So we fenced off all our waterways. We paid really, really close attention to our nutrient maps to make sure there wasn't particularly nitrogen going on the paddocks in high rainfall events, and we were only putting on as much nitrogen as we needed.
So how did the nutrient mapping and the fencing off of your waterways actually assist your productivity?
Well, what certainly putting in the cow superhighways that we called them was a very effective means of ensuring that the nutrients stayed on the paddocks where it could do good. But what it actually meant, so the extra native vegetation along the waterways, along the riparian zones, meant we had more shade and shelter for our cows. So it actually lifted our productivity because we had cows that were healthier, cows that were happier. You know, they had shade in the high heat events. They were spending less time walking backwards and forwards to the dairy, and those roads backwards and forwards to the dairy provided a lot of cow comfort that we didn't have in the past.
Are there any key lessons reflecting back on your time that you'd like to share, particularly around natural resource management and productivity and how they can go together?
Yeah, I think a lot of farmers have a bit of a green phobia about bringing in experts in natural resource management. And once you build that relationship, it's extraordinarily rewarding. The only regret that we have is we didn't do it sooner. And farmers have this concept that we have to be jacks of all trade. Well, that's not necessary. If we focus on what we're good at and outsource the expertise we don't have. And I believe in today's environment, particularly where dairy farming is becoming more and more intensive, that it's absolutely imperative that farmers see an expert in natural resource management as a key member of their team. What I would really like to see is closer working relationships with farmers and the community, and that acknowledgement that if we're going to, particularly in the way, you know, the importance of having healthy catchments, that every single Australian deserves clean air and clean water, and have that guarantee that the landscape that supports us is being nurtured. That's a shared responsibility. We've got to get everybody involved, and that's the message that I want to get out there to the community. I think it's really important today that we farm with 21st century thinking, and that means that farmers need to outsource the areas of expertise that they don't have. Farming today is a very complex business. We've got very complex issues. It's very challenging out there. We've got to deal with things like climate change, biosecurity issues, waste management. There's wonderful opportunities coming forward with renewable energy, for example. Wonderful opportunity for farmers to get a passive income from that. But if we're going to take advantages of the opportunities, it is imperative that we get outside our silos and start to build relationships with the people who can make that happen.